Okay, I'd like to call tonight's special regular council meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the special regular council meeting of April 15th, 2019 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Morrow, second by Councillor Anish. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. First up, we have the Reserve Fund Amendment Bylaw.
Thank you. The provincial government recently announced the Northern Capital and Planning Grant for various local governments in northern BC. The City of Prince Rupert has received $8.121 million under this program. We have been informed by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that the Minister has set terms and conditions for these funds, which includes setting up a dedicated reserve fund. This fund is to be reported on annually by way of a separate schedule to the audited financial statements until the balance is drawn down to zero. Council is asked to give 3 readings to the bylaw amendment in order to add a dedicated reserve for this grant.
Okay, moved by Councillor Anish, the recommendation, second by Councillor Morrow. Any further discussion on this matter? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next, we have the 5-year financial plan.
Actually, I'll be speaking to both the 5-year financial plan and the next bylaw, which is the tax rate bylaw. The community charter requires the City of Prince Rupert to prepare a 5-year financial plan and an annual property tax bylaw. Both bylaws must be adopted on or before May 15th of the current year. The 5-year financial plan describes the expenditures the city expects to make during the year. The budget informing the document has proceeded through a public engagement process, and staff received direction on April 8th to prepare the necessary bylaw based on the information presented. The annual property tax bylaw sets the levies for the municipal property taxes, which the 5-year financial plan is dependent upon for funding the proposed expenditures. The annual property tax bylaw also sets the property tax levies for 3 other taxing authorities based on requisitions they send to the city. The amounts calculated based on these rates are also included on property owners' tax notices. The local governments this property tax bylaw also sets rates for are the North Coast Regional District, the Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional Hospital District, and the Northwest Regional Hospital District. The North Coast Regional District's requisition from the municipal taxpayers has gone up by approximately $43,000 over last year. The Regional District has indicated that this is principally because of increased costs and reduced rental revenue and lower recycling sales. The Northwest Regional Hospital District's requisition from the municipal taxpayers has gone up by approximately $130,000 over last year. The Regional Hospital District has indicated this is principally because of the business plan for Mills Memorial Hospital, as well as the carryover of some major projects from 2018. The City of Prince Rupert 2019 property tax bylaw provides for a 2% decrease to the municipal tax rate. Council is requested to give 3 readings to each of the 5-year financial plan bylaw and the tax rate bylaw to further the process of completing the 2019 budget.
Councillor Morrow.
I know I was soundly defeated on my last try, so I promise this motion is tangibly different, and I won't be offended if someone is willing to second me again and chooses to vote against me in the end, but I still think the debate's worthwhile. I move that Council give first, second, and third readings of the 2019 5-year financial plan bylaw with a 1% tax decrease and corresponding increase to downtown capital improvements.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mayor Brain. So is it open for discussion? So for the first time since being in this seat for the last 5 years, I actually went back and re-watched the last council meeting. I've never done that before, and I watched it multiple times because I wanted to accurately reflect everything that you guys had said in the last debate. I did not want to mischaracterize your words, and I wanted to come back with what I think is a fairly solid compromise based on what you guys had said. So to refresh your memories, last meeting was I had suggested a 1% tax decrease and a corresponding increase to asset management. That obviously did not fly. The reason I've changed to downtown capital improvements is because I think now we can have a specific debate around priorities of which I know we all share. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the 3 main points that you guys brought up that I actually agree with you, but also provide a counter, and then there's 5 points that were raised that I disagree with. So I'm going to do this as best I can, and I hope I can sway some minds this time. So the first point that I think everyone agreed on is that we need to make a symbolic gesture as a city, that we need to show we're making strides and show light at the end of the tunnel, prove that this is the start of something, start of a new trend, and that it's time to send a message that we're heading somewhere. Now, we've frozen taxes already 2 of the last 3 years, and I'm proposing, again, a 1% tax decrease, not a tax increase. I think that sends that symbolic message that we all want to send. We're able to restore 2 RCMP officers and a bylaw officer exclusively through industrial growth. The message, I think, has already been sent, whether or not it's 1 or 2%. We've proven that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we've proven that the tax burden is going to start to shift from residences and commercial taxpayers to industry, because the entire increase in services or operational services is funded by industry. The second piece we all agree on is that we need to ease the tax burden. We want to shift taxes from residents and businesses to industry. We want to provide encouragement for people that have carried that tax burden for a number of years, and bring us to a point where not only does industry pay their fair share, but we're not expecting our taxpayers to pay substantially more than people across the province. So I referenced it last meeting, but the Small Business Advisory Committee that I've been chairing for the last few years has actually recommended to us another tax freeze, again for that same logic, because the entire increased operational services is being funded by growth on Watson and Ridley Islands. On top of that, other communities are facing annual tax increases of anywhere from 4 to 13%, while we've been able to freeze 2 of the last 3 years and are actually having a reasonable debate over whether we decrease taxes 1 or 2%. So we're already making significant ground on that front of easing the tax burden. The third point that I think we all agree on is that we can't predict the unknown. There's a lot of unknown factors that are going to influence our financial planning because we don't know what's going to happen next year. And I think we can all agree that we want to hopefully have the same argument next year. But the basic argument that we can't predict the unknown actually supports the motion that I'm putting on the table, because yes, the tax caps could be solved, yes, the Resource Benefits Alliance could work out, and yes, more industry could attract here. But those are all based on ifs. By the same token, we're experiencing a $200,000 hit with the employer health tax this year. We've seen the ferry go over budget by $350,000. We had multiple main breaks on McBride and had to dig up new pavement. And the year before that, we went over on the snow budget and got really lucky again this year. So that same logic that we can't predict the unknown actually supports my argument to put more money into something specific that I think we can all agree on, which is downtown improvements. So that's the 3 themes where we agree. Now the places where we disagree, and I couldn't think fast enough on my feet last time, the argument that we should lower taxes because we have the opportunity, that we don't know if we're going to be able to do it in the future. Rarely do we have the opportunity to both reduce taxes and invest extra money in infrastructure. If I had told you 5 years ago that we could cut taxes by 1% and our roads budget by 30%, you guys would have taken that deal in a heartbeat. So I don't want us to get caught up in a moment in time that just because we can, we should. I think we should do the most prudent financial thing, which is to actually invest in the assets we know that are deteriorating. The other point that was made is that we're already increasing services from one-time revenues, so we do have this opportunity to reduce taxes. We've put that $1.8 million away into the reserve, which is fantastic news. And the argument that you guys had put forward last time is this decrease is a one-time thing. We don't know if we're going to be able to do it again. So for me, that actually supports my argument that we know in our asset management plan that we need to be repaving 4 kilometers of road a year. We should be putting millions away, but we've been stuck at 400,000, and we're finally able to increase for 1 year up to $1 million. But even that one-time doubling through the gas tax is not even close to being able to fund the significant infrastructure deficit that we've got. The deficit is still growing, and even if we were to allocate the entire 2% tax decrease to infrastructure, we're still only making a drop in the bucket. Which actually brings me to the next point, which is there's always more that we could be doing. We need $10 to $15 million more a year to be able to actually keep up. There's always more we could be spending on. And so my counter to that is basically the data is showing us already that if we could be quadrupling the amount of money that we spend on our roads or in our downtown, we still would not be able to meet our financial targets. So to me, the argument that we could use this as a one-time decrease of taxes rather than actually make a meaningful impact on that infrastructure deficit, to me, actually supports my argument. And I'm almost to the end, I promise, guys. The other argument was that cutting taxes would have an impact on livability, that whether the impact of it doesn't really matter all that much in terms of the size, but we want to try to attract business and industry and entice people to move here. So I want to ask the question a different way. Based on this motion, if we were to poll home and business owners and ask them, would you rather save an average of $14 a year on your household taxes or have 30% more paving done? If we ask that question, I think we all know what the answer would be. I think everyone wants to see substantial improvement to our infrastructure relative to the amount of money that the average homeowner would be saving. We've always said for the last few years, with everything that we're being asked to do, whether it's waterfront access, downtown revitalization, roads, bridges, sewers, we always want to do more if we only had the money. That's been the standard response for the last few years, and now we finally do. We can actually move past the point of complaining about all these things we're being asked to do and actually address them in a meaningful way. And we can still cut taxes by 1% on top of it. A bylaw officer and new RCMP officers are fantastic investments that are going to help us make a real improvement to service, but they still don't do anything to help us with the infrastructure problems that we're currently facing. So the last point I want to make, it's the only actual rationale that I don't feel I can actually counter, which was Councillor Nish's argument that if you feel more strongly that a tax decrease is more important, then that I'm not going to be able to convince you guys. I understand that. From my perspective, though, if we believe that every little bit counts for reducing taxes, then every little bit counts in reducing our infrastructure deficit by the same token. So obviously, I feel more strongly that people would want to see a 1% tax decrease plus having significant money allocated to improving our downtown, more than just a 2% tax decrease. And I hope that you guys, hopefully I've changed at least one mind tonight.
Comments? Councillor Nish?
You haven't convinced me. Basically, like I said the last time, I mean, the amount of money that we are needed for our infrastructure deficit, this is going to be a drop in the bucket for that. And but it is, in my mind, more important to shift the other way and start shifting the taxes off the residents. And the only way we're going to do that is by not being greedy. We got more money than what we've had in the previous couple of years, and we've decided to use some of that towards, you know, whether it be by law, police, and by, you know, I mean, the reality is the amount of taxes we've collected this year could actually give us a bigger reduction if we didn't increase any services. So I still feel, rather than being greedy and trying to take more, I think we should use that money to decrease the taxes, because I feel that our taxes are so much higher than other communities already, and we need to shift that back the other way again. We need the industry to pay it, and so you have not convinced me that 2% should go away and make it 1. Sorry.
Okay, so we have Councillor Ranhawa, then Councillor Skelton Morvan, and then Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whatever Councillor Miro says, like we need more money for the infrastructure, everything, right? And I agree with that. Even if we don't do any 1% discount, we increase 2% or 4%, we still won't be able to fix our roads. But we already investing in infrastructure this year, 500 extra in paving and extra police officer, bylaw officer. So we already doing some extra work. And other thing like I agree that other communities already paying 4 to 6% extra. They're increasing this year their taxes, but they're trying to catch us up. We already here, right? And they are here. They're trying to catch up. So if we decrease 2%, we will probably in a few years we will be meet them to catch them up. And also, it's not like our residents still be paying extra extra this year because 3% on utility bills we increase already, like for 5 years, and 5% they again on recreation fees. So their expense is already gone up. So extra $30 or $40 to every resident, especially on people on fixed income, will give them extra break to extra grocery they can put on the table. So I think to 2% decrease, I think is the right thing for our council to do, and I will vote for 2% decrease. Thank you.
Councillor Skelton Mormon.
First off, Councillor Moreau, just thank you for making the motion, and I firmly believe in the asset management strategy and putting some money aside. However, I still am, unfortunately, at this time, I'll have to disagree with you there and stick to the guns with the decrease of 2%, especially regarding folks that are on fixed income. So I know $40 may not seem like a lot to most, but those that are on fixed incomes, it might deem to be a bit of a challenge. And that's part of the main reasons why I ran for City Council, is to alleviate the taxes on small business owners as well as our residents, because we do pay some of the highest taxes in the country at this time. So at this time, I'm still in favor of decreasing by 2%.
And I'll just mention that's some of the highest taxes per capita in BC. That's where we're at.
Okay, I voiced my opinion last time. I'll voice it again. I totally disagree with this. First of all, I agree our downtown needs revitalization, but I don't see why we're going to take 1% against the general population and put it into one specific area. Light industry businesses all need a break. Maybe a few people on the small business community or committee are agreeing with this, but if you go to the industrial park and talk to the people whose assessments are in the millions of dollars, that 2% represents quite a bit of money to them. I agree with Councillor Reid in that people on fixed income, this means something to them. But you're missing one little point with all this. Our CFO just told us that the other taxes are going up. School, regional district, and the regional district hospital board. This 2% helps people absorb those other taxes going up. So it's not just one little 2% for these homeowners, because they're still going to see some sort of increase, but it's going to soften the burden on them. And I just think that by taking 1% away from the general population and putting it in one specific area, that, you know, if we're going to put it anywhere, I agree with infrastructure, but we're already putting more money into infrastructure than we plan to. We're getting more paving done and more things done. And I do believe in the next few years, that's going to improve more and more. I think we've turned the corner here, this council and this town, and we're starting to see progress in a lot of other areas. You know, more and more younger people are moving back, buying houses, getting good paying jobs. And I think this is only going to increase and increase. And I said before, and I'll say it again, between the RBA and the tax cap and the way our mayor and other people in this region have been working on that, I think we're going to see something coming out of that too. I don't have a glass ball. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but I see a lot better future for this town than I did 4 or 5 years ago. And everyone in this room ran at one time, last campaign, this campaign, 2 campaigns before that, on giving people a tax break. And this is just a small step in that direction. You know, when you look at our business taxes, they're up there. You know, they're too high. And, you know, I don't know if that's part of why we have so many businesses going out of business, but it's got to be a contributing factor. You know, if you've got some of the more successful businesses, they can absorb it. Ones that are marginal are having trouble. And I've been told that numerous times. Our taxes are too high. And then when you get out in the light industrial area, where some of those people are paying big taxes, they're loving this 2%. So I just can't support any change right now. I think the people need a tax break, and I think this is just the first step, and I'm hoping more. But
Councillor Ady, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just add that first of all, I would stand by much of what I said last last time on this, and I won't repeat myself. There is one other sort of point, and I'm not sure how important it is, but it might be, and that is that we know that the process that we've gone through involves a number of meetings and a number of times that you revisit these things. But I don't know that a lot of people out there understand that, because I've had several people say to me, I thought the 2% was a done deal. And, so I recognize that for some people there's a disconnect between the perception of how this has been rolled out and the reality of the process that finalizes it. And so I think that there may be people who would feel that, it was the kind of here again, gone again tax that got pulled out from under the rug. And I don't think that's an argument by itself, but it's a point that hasn't been made. I think the other arguments are the ones that should carry the day. So I find myself still in favor of the 2% tax cut.
Councillor Moreau?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, but I still... The ultimate reason I'm disappointed is actually because you guys have all chosen to very conveniently ignore the logic that I just laid out, and you've repeated it right back to me. So the only thing I can respond to here is, again, the disconnect is I'm not proposing a tax increase. I think you're trying to paint me as if I'm somehow being greedy and trying to take. When in fact what I'm trying to do is actually give people what they want, which is a revitalized downtown. It's something we've debated about for years on end. And so I think that's important. The other thing is that if we're able to revitalize downtown, if we really do want to ease the tax burden on people, not just for 1 year, but for multiple years moving forward, we need everyone's assessments to rise. The only way to do that is to actually have a downtown that's walkable, that's safe, that's thriving, that's vibrant, that's full of businesses. The second piece around small business is I understand what you're saying from an anecdotal perspective, Councillor Cunningham, but all of the small business survey results from the last 3 to 5 years show that taxes are actually at the bottom of the list of issues that small businesses have. The number one issue consistently is recruitment and retention. And I don't know how we're ever going to make a meaningful dent in the challenges that businesses are having in recruitment and retention if we don't have a downtown that people actually want to visit and invest in and spend their time. And the last piece, I agree, Councillor Cunningham, that we don't have a crystal ball. None of us can predict the future. I might be proven wrong, and every year from now, Watson Island is growing and making us more money. Ridley Island is growing and making us more money. We have industry coming left, right, and center. That could very well happen. I can't predict the future. But all the evidence shows us that in moving forward with tax cuts, the long-term impact is that ultimately you're going to have to raise taxes more in the long run, because a municipality is not a business. We have 2% inflation virtually across the board, whether it's staff wages, whether it's the increase of cost of materials, contractual obligations, whatever it might be. So I'm trying to look beyond just a 1-year financial forecast and look at what the long-term impact would be of reducing taxes. So obviously it's disappointing that I haven't convinced anyone, so rather than just beating me to a pulp, I'd be happy to just call it to a vote.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I want to just make it clear that I don't think anyone's would ever imply that you're being anything but trying to find a win-win situation here. So it's certainly not certainly not about what you're proposing or how you're proposing it. So the good news is we're debating whether or not it's a 1% tax decrease or a 2% tax decrease, and we're still debating that. So no one's suggesting that, I would say. Just for one comment for me is just around the downtown, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but we know that Redesign Rupert is going to be taking on a major initiative with the downtown and the waterfront, and as well as recruitment and retention. And I know there's going to be more coming out publicly around what the process is going to look like that. And for me, I'd rather see a coordinated approach to that. And reality is it's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars for those improvements to be made. And yes, we could put $100,000 a year into downtown improvements. And yes, we could do that now. But I am also in with the other comments that have been made here today that just due to where we were at, we needed to start that process of lowering it. And whether it's 1 or 2. I think 2 is more significant and starts the process. And what I'm going to be doing for the next year is trying to bring in even more money for the next budget. And yes, it's uncertain. This whole job's uncertain. But we're getting there. We're doing it. And I'm hoping to be able to bring even more cash into the table by the next year's budget so that we can have a similar conversation at that time too. So I'm just going to continue with where the motions have gone from previous. And is there any further comments any folks want to make? Okay, Councillor Nish and then Councillor Cunningham.
Baby steps. Baby steps is what we have to do, and baby steps and decreases is going in the right direction. I understand the logic of you have increases every year, and you should be increasing every year a little bit just to cover the cost. But the reality is we are so far higher than everyone else because of caps and because of the mill shutting down and because we have not been able to collect from the major industry that like we should be able to. And so once again, I just have to say that I would like to see residents go down more and more and more every year to get us back to where it should be and have other people paying that, which is industry. I think we all agree with that. So I don't think we want to see assessments go up every year because assessments going up every year, we can adjust the mill rate. We don't need to necessarily have assessments going up every year in order to make adjustments in the mill rate. I think we need the money to come from the right place, and I still think that every year we need to be decreasing residents' taxes. Now, whether one year we decide it's the residential one and maybe another year it's business, I think we need to shift those taxes back to where they are in the right spot, and that is lower, definitely lower.
Councillor Cunningham?
Well, a couple things. I don't think anyone's beating you up. I have the utmost respect for your opinions and the way you present yourself, Blair, and I've always said that. I respect the way you look at things and that, and that's an example of this council here, that we can always have a lively debate like this and all walk out at the end smiling because points were made, whether they're accepted by other councillors or not. At least we can have the discussion and not like some councils that are almost trying to get at each other's throats sometimes. I think it's been a really good run for this council in the last 4 or 5 years, and I can see nothing but more of that. As far as the 2% inflation rate, I'm hoping we have 2, 3, 4% growth rate in our industry so that we can have more taxes coming in and continue to look at ways to enhance not only the infrastructure in this town with the extra money, but give the taxpayers of this town, whether they're business, light industry, or residential, a break. And I think the only way we're going to get that is to encourage more industry to come in. And the other frills will come with it. And I think the staff has done a pretty good job of balancing things here with extra money and things like that, and trying to get everything on the plate. Everyone wants something, and unfortunately everyone wants roads with no potholes in it. Trust me, I drive a big truck and I forget sometimes when I get in a little car and I hear the shocks bottoming out. So it's something we're all aware of, and I think we're all want to tackle. So it's just one of those things I think we'll gradually get to, and I think we're slowly getting there. It's taken years to get to this point where our infrastructure is where it is, and it's going to take a few years to get back to there. And I just think we've got a good start already, and trust me, I respect the way you're going with it and that, and I know that your intentions are very, very good, but I just like to see people get a break. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll make this the final word then. So I do appreciate that, Councillor Cunningham, because it's true. Even though I know I'm about to get outvoted 6-1, I will still leave here with a smile on my face and know that I haven't burned any bridges with any of you guys, because the debates we do have are always, they've never gotten personal, and I really do appreciate that. The last thing I would say, though, it seems to be coming down to this final point around what we've been saying is a drop in the bucket or baby steps. And I think our fundamental difference is, for me, what I'm proposing is a baby step both on reducing taxes and a baby step on addressing our infrastructure deficit. I'm trying to make literally everyone happy, and I'm obviously haven't been able to do that, whereas you guys are obviously of the mind that you feel more strongly that a drop in the bucket on taxes and baby steps on taxes is more important than balancing those two. I understand that. I understand we're going to have a difference of opinion. I had to do what I believe is right. I think the debate was worthwhile.
Okay, well, I think we're good on the debate then. Okay, okay, so this is on the Councillor Moreau's motion, so all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion doesn't carry. So I'll move the recommendation that council give first, second, and third reading to the 2019 5-year financial plan bylaw number 3441 2019. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, move the a recommendation that the council introduce and give first, second, and third reading to the 2019 property tax bylaw number 3442 2019. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Renhawa. Hey, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have the mayor and council remuneration amendment bylaw. The recommendation is that council give first, second, and third readings to the mayor and council remuneration amendment bylaw number 3435 2019. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Skelton Morvan. Any further discussion? Councillor Renhawa?
Yeah, can we read this motion in two steps? One is like as a mayor wages, and other one as a councillor wages.
That's difficult to break up, correct?
That's what we're doing right now. We have different bracket right now. Like we have mayor's wages
Is there
different.
do you have a it's one bylaw, so do you have an amendment you would like to present?
Yeah, like I like to read as different two separate motions. One for the mayor wages, and other one for the councillor wages.
Just make an amendment.
Yeah, I think at this point you would just present an amendment. So is there?
I move on as amendment.
No, I mean, what's the amendment you want to make?
I like motion like we should in two steps we should deal this bylaw. One for the mayor wages, and second one for then we will discuss for the second motion to discuss about the councillor wages.
Can I jump in a little bit?
One sec, Councillor Eddie.
Can't you just make a motion? Hold on a sec. Can't you just make a motion of what the change you want to see rather than trying to split it up? Because otherwise it's just going to delay everything again, right? Like if you want to see something different, you can make a motion and see if somebody wants to second it. Like if you think, rather than separating it, you can just make a motion as far as the change you want to see, right?
So my motion be like that: council give first, second, and third reading to the mayor remuneration amendment bylaw number this and that 3439/2019. Number A, that would be number A. Number B, that council gives first, second, and third reading to the council remuneration amendment bylaw number this one.
We can't do that, right? So we only have one bylaw for the entirety of it all. So is there specifically something that you want to change about the remuneration, whether it's council, mayor, anything, that we would apply to this bylaw?
Yeah, like my understanding is like right now mayor's wages are different, right? So I like to discuss first on mayor's wages as a different issue, and then second, because councillor wages are different, right? So then second phase, I like to discuss about the councillor wages, because in mayor, right, I know it's like full-time, part-time, right? So it's different, right? And councillors are different right now. I think we should have two different
bylaws
for both months.
I don't think Councillor Ady, what were you wanting to say?
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion. And maybe this is a simpler way to talk about the issue of the raises that we're looking at. So my suggestion would be this. We've got basically a package that ties our wages, the council members' wages, to the mayor's wage. And that's what makes it difficult to separate into two separate, because it kind of destroys the whole sort of fabric of this bylaw as it stands. So what if we were to take a different approach and suggest that the amendment would be, and I don't want anybody to take offense at this, because I think everybody's doing a fantastic job. But that the amendment be in section number 3 there, that the annual remuneration payable to the mayor shall be a different number, and that the rest of it, tying the councillors' wages by 25%, the rest of the structure of the bylaw would stand. So maybe the way to do this would be for me to throw a number out, and we can see if that works. Can we? What do people think of that?
I'm not sure what.
Hello?
I guess where I'm at is, what is specifically the? Yeah. So the motion's on the floor, right? We have the bylaw already up.
Yeah.
I guess what it would be is, if you want a motion to make an amendment to the bylaw, I would just say state whatever changes you believe those are.
Yeah.
Right, I wouldn't say
Okay.
let's try to make it a couple different bylaws here, because that's, to form a bylaw, it requires some effort. This is all in one here. So if you're saying you want to make an amendment, just say I move to amend something about it. That's the way I look at it.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, that was all I'm saying.
So what I'll say then, just to move it along, is I'll say that we should amend the number $75,000 to $72,000.
Any seconders? Okay, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? Councillor Niche?
Maybe I should.
Yeah, go ahead,
should.
Councillor Ady.
Yeah. So my last time what I said was that in talking to most people, there was sort of three groups of people. One group didn't have any strong feelings one way or another, and I was surprised by how many people were in that group. Another group felt that a raise was well deserved, and so go ahead. And then there's the other group that thinks that, you know, we should not be voting ourselves raises, and they would be concerned, I think, particularly about the amount that the raise represents. So what I'm suggesting here is my best efforts to strike a compromise that allows us to show that we're being sensitive to the opposition point of view. We're acknowledging the points of view of the supporters by still having a raise in there. We were still looking at a raise. We're just making it a more modest one. And that would, and the last point is that the simplicity of that is that it's an easier amendment to deal with in the context of this bylaw. And before anybody else speaks up, I would like to say that this is not a reflection on the quality of the efforts that people bring to the council in both the case of the mayor and the council members. I'm just trying to find that middle ground for the various points of view that are out there.
Councillor Niche?
I just wanted to say the whole reason of putting a blue ribbon panel committee together was to make these, you know, recommendations to take us out of the conversation more, and I feel that, you know, here we are, we're going to nickel and dime over $3,000. You know, this was a committee of community members that was put together to make these they made these recommendations. You know, if you want to agree or disagree, that's fine, but the whole idea was to take us out of the conversation as much, because it is a hard topic to discuss raises. You know, I feel that that because we have a full-time mayor, and I think his efforts have put forward have put us in a way better position than in the past. I think his efforts, you know, the reality is he's this 365-day-a-year job. You know, if somebody wants him to show up to an event, he's there. You know, sometimes we attend on his behalf, but the reality is that he is there 7 days a week. Most of the time we'll be there, and he is working 7 days a week on making this a better community. And I think that it has shown in the last 4 years, and I feel that this committee made the recommendations based on information that was given to them and information that they dug up, and I really feel that we should just go with what is recommended. So yeah, that's about all I got to say.
Councillor Renhow and then Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still believe that this motion should be deal in two different steps. I may agree that we do need full-time mayor, and he should be paid for full-time wages. That should be different. But I'm not in favor of 25% whatever you be making. Like
So Councillor Renhow, what we could do is after this amendment motion, you can bring a motion forward on specifically what you feel the councillors can do as well after this motion's over.
So I don't. I'm not in favor of 25%, like whatever proposed by this amendment. So I still feel like it should be read as different.
Okay, Councillor Cunningham, and we're discussing the amendment motion at the moment.
Okay. First of all, the motion, according to our Robert's rules, is a motion of division. If you have something like we're doing and you want to separate it, it's a motion of division. And you would separate the 2 points to make 2 motions out of it. That out of the way, I spoke on this last meeting, I'll speak on it again. I have real no problem with the raises. I think we put in a lot of time and effort as a community, the mayor more than anyone else, and like I said last time before the meeting, you were gone for 4 days to Prince George. You don't get paid any extra for the weekends you put in or anything like that. You attend just about every function that's out there. I know, because I'm there with you a lot of times. And, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, people don't see a lot of the effort that goes into it. And as far as talking to different people, I guess that depends on your audience, because I'm out and about a lot, and yeah, I get some negative comments here and there, but most of them are fairly positive. And like I said before, if you know, you get the manager or CEO of a company running $35–40 million budget, and look at what they're making, plus they usually get a bonus at the end of the year, whether the company makes money or not. And so I really don't have a problem with it, but if the councillors want to divide it into 2, then so be it. But you know, it's just one of those things. I think that, like Councillor Neese said, a group of citizens came together and recommended this, and they weren't getting influenced by any of us. I don't know, you know, how they came up with their figures. We've never really we had them here, and they did their presentation. None of us questioned them too much about it. But I think at the end of the day, it's reasonable. You know, like I haven't had a lot of negativity from the community, and I'm out and about quite a bit. Yeah, there's a few people that think we should be making nothing, and there's a few people who think we should be making more. So it's up to what council decides, I'd say.
Councillor Murrow. Sorry, Councillor Ady, Councillor Murrow, and then I'll come to you.
Okay.
I've been fairly consistent in my position, but I think it's worth repeating. There's very few professions on earth where you ever get to set your own wage. It's the very definition of a conflict of interest, but there is a specific exception made in the community charter. It does create an awkward situation, that's obvious. I think we did the prudent thing in striking a citizens committee to study all the data, the evidence, and make those comparisons with other communities. So for me, I think we did the right thing, and I think every community in British Columbia should adopt the process that we did as a way to eliminate bias and conflict in setting wages and benefits for mayor and council. And I think it would be a disservice to the members of the committee and to our own staff who spent so much time and effort in making that process and ultimately the recommendation. So whether or not we split this discussion into two, I'm going to say the exact same thing. I think we should be honoring the work of the Citizens Committee as a way to eliminate bias and conflict in setting our own wages.
Councillor Adie?
A few things. First of all, I think I understand how Councillor Moreau feels much better now. I don't think that what I'm suggesting is a motion of division, because the whole package stays intact. I'm just changing one word in it. But that as it may, I'm recognizing the arguments against what I've said, and what I really intended for us to do is simply have a conversation about the concept of a raise and the amount of a raise. And I'm hearing, fairly clearly where people are at. And I respect that, because I agree with the points that you're making in counter to it. In particular, the notion that why would you appoint a blue ribbon committee to go out and do all this work and then change what they had to say? But at the same time, that power and that responsibility does in the end rest with us, and not with that committee. So I put that forward as what I felt was the simplest way to get at what I think is the real question, and that's simply how much of an adjustment do we want to make in remuneration. So that's basically where I'm coming from.
Okay, is there any further discussion of the amendment that's been presented? Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment?
I'll be in favor of it because I moved it.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion doesn't carry. So now we're back into the main motion. So, Councillor Runhauer, did you want to make a motion specifically regarding councillor wages? Is that what you're wanting to do? Okay. So, what's your microphone now?
So, I don't think it's fair, the amount of work mayor does on behind the scene and in the council, that we should be like 25% of that. And I think mayor is full-time, and his wages should be different, reflected, and councillors, we should be discuss our different separate discussion on that. So my motion should be council give first, second, third reading to the mayor's remuneration amendment, and then the council give first, second, and third reading to councillors remuneration amendment.
So I was just going to say, Councillor Runhauer, what you could do, because I understand you want to separate them, what you can do right now. So you can alter the bylaw, and you could, let's just say you're wanting to make a different wage for the councillors. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do you have a wage in mind that you're saying that you would like it to be? Like, we can have that separate conversation in this moment right now. We can do that. We don't have to create another bylaw to have a separate conversation. You can change it in this bylaw right now by moving an amendment to the bylaw that would, and recommend what you're thinking. You're saying it shouldn't be 25% of it. So if you're having a specific recommendation of what you think it should be, now would be that time to put that forward.
So I need help from our financial officer. How much on 1/3 we lost on taxes? So how much that would be amount for each councillor? So my motion be like whatever we
you would-
lost on 1/3 on taxes, whatever we paying extra.
Yeah.
That should be include extra only on our wages.
So you're
Okay.
saying just the
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 loss of
difference of the 1/3 tax,
1/3,
and that's
whatever
it.
we lost, right?
Right.
So
not
that should
not
be
including
our
the
increase,
increase.
not 25%.
Okay. So you're moving that it just be equal to what the 1/3 tax difference would be as the
Yeah.
total
Yes.
remuneration.
Yeah,
Okay. So
whatever we lost.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's moved by Councillor Renhawa. Any seconders? Okay, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion, Councillor Niche.
Same argument. Blue Ribbon Committee, they did the work on this. I am going to say the same thing I said last time when we had this discussion. If you look at the time and energy that we all put into this, you know, we all have separate committees and groups beyond these chairs that we sit in here, and you know, we have not taken an increase in the 4 years that we have been here, and also, you know, also the tax loss. So I once again am supporting the point that we had a Blue Ribbon Committee do the work for us, because we didn't want to get into this discussion of what we felt was fair. So there again, what would be the point of putting a committee together if we're going to sit here and contradict what they say? To me, you know, I have no problem with the recommendations that they've put forward, and I feel that, just as Councillor Moreau had said, we should support the work and effort that has been put in by by that group and our staff to come up with this bylaw, and I fully support it the way it's written and no changes.
Councillor Cunningham.
Actually, I have a question of our CFO. Can you tell us the difference between a 1/3 or what we're losing in income tax and what we're proposing, roughly? No dollars and cents.
Okay, so I've been quickly trying to recalculate as all these suggestions are going around. So just quickly, okay, and please don't hold me to this exactly, just in case I'm looking at the wrong sheet. But it looks like it would be a $2,220 increase gross pay for each councillor in order to get the same net pay. And then the recommendation, if it goes at 25%, which is in the bylaw, would be $3,099 more. Just a reminder that the entire increase proposed under the bylaw is actually only a 0.001% increase to the entire overall operating budget. That's the cost of this increase overall entirely. And that was absorbed, as was discussed previously through the budget process. That was absorbed through some of the new money that came in. So that's the best I can do in a quick moment like this.
Yeah, I believe the number was 18,000 versus 16,000 basically a year, something like that. That's the difference. Councillor Renaud.
Yeah, like I agree with whatever everything you said. Like, I know how much time, family life we invest in this job, and on the other hand, like I would say we choose this one to serve our community, to make our community better. By doing this, like we just came out from our election few months ago, and none of us like mentioned about that we will increase our wages where if we get elected, because we're not getting paid enough, right? So I think 1/3 we lost. We still be making same whatever we were making last year. That's my point. And this year we are lucky we have extra money to cover this $50,000 or $53,000 extra if we go with this bylaw. But next year, if we don't get any extra money, our taxpayers have to pay maybe 0.5% or more than 0.5% to just cover our extra increase our baby wages. So I don't think our taxpayer be ready for that to pay extra money for our wages next year. So I think we should separately deal this motion.
Councillor Nish.
I would like to also point out that, you know, we did not take the increase for 4 years that it was actually written into the previous bylaw. So we chose not to take that increase for 4 years because we chose instead to freeze taxes, keep the taxes low, and have no impact on the taxpayers. So now that we're in the position to do it, you know, now that we've got the extra revenue and provided more services, and we are able to maybe get back what we gave up in those 4 years, because we chose not to take an increase for 4 years, when even though it's written in the bylaw. So once again, what's the point of getting a committee to do the work if you're going to contradict everything they say?
Councillor Skelton Morvan, then Councillor Moreau, and then Councillor Renaud.
Just that I'd like to agree with what the Blue Ribbon Committee had presented. So I touched base on this a little last time, where this is beyond us. This is not just us personally voting ourselves in for a raise or anything like that. I know that some of the misconception is that, but that the Blue Ribbon Committee was assembled so that we kind of take a step back and we're out of that conversation, and that we pass the recommendation and take a step back from what is clearly the definition of conflict of interest. But for me, like I mentioned before, that I look at this in the future. So when we come time for the next election, that anyone from any walk of life can have an equal opportunity to represent our community, and not those of just strong economic standing or the upper echelon of society, so to speak. So I think that, so for me, my 2 cents is that I'm in favor of what they're presented. This was the whole point that we formed this Blue Ribbon Committee, and to nickel and dime, I know it doesn't seem like much to some of us, even if it's $2,000 less. However, to someone that is maybe not of stronger economic standing, you know, the extra $100 bi-weekly or whatever it ends up adding up to could be pretty substantial, and be the kind of the make or break for someone if they can continue this position for the 4-year term. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Councillor Moreau, then Councillor Renaud.
Rather than just repeat what I said on the last bylaw, I do think Councillor Adie actually made a fair point that is worth responding to, that we did strike this committee, but ultimately the responsibility does lie with us to make this decision. And I think we'd be having a very different conversation if the committee had come back out and had proposed that we would all be paid $100,000 a year, escalating 20% a year. So, I mean, we do have to ask ourselves, do we think the recommendations are prudent, are in the best long-term interest of the community? And I agree with Councillor Skelton Morvan. We want to set rates that attract the greatest cross-section of potential candidates to represent their community regardless of their economic circumstances. I don't think the committee has recommended anything that is so high that someone is going to run for council for the money. By the same token, I don't think they've set a rate that is so low that you aren't going to attract anyone other than those who have the spare time to do it. So with that said, I think the recommendations are balanced. Again, I reiterate, I think the committee process, I think, is the most prudent way to set wages and benefits based on the evidence, based on the data, based on comparisons with other communities of similar size, so that we can make sure that this is not just about us, that it is the long-term interest of our community.
Councillor Renaud, and then Councillor Adie.
Okay.
Yeah, like 1/3, right? We're talking about. I think I lost my thought. Like, let her talk. I will say it again. Okay. Yes.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to know from our CFO, like when we had our council had last time wage increase. You have any idea?
That was back in 2014 when you first got elected. It was 2014, right? Yeah. So council had just taken their wage increase earlier that year, so it was the previous council.
Okay. Yeah, but before that, like when our times were bad, like I know one time mayor put full time and then he choose to go back to half time because our economic was not that good. So it's not. I still feel like we are not there yet. I know we got some money this year, but I think we need some more new business here, new revenue, and few years. Yes, I think when we have extra money coming to our town, then I think we should be able to do that time. But I don't think we are. This is right time yet. Even though like Blue River, right? They didn't recommend only one option. They gave us 3 options to discuss, right? But we choose to go this one, right? So they had 3 recommendations.
Councillor 80.
I would just say that one of the things that I think is the strength of the bylaw as it's currently worded, therefore not amended, is the fact that it's one package and it ties everything together and puts us in a position where it can stand the test of time, and we may conceivably not have to have this conversation again, because it is obviously one that's a difficult one to have and a difficult one to be confident in taking positions on. So I like keeping it as an integrated package, and I hope that it's structured in a way that it can be a long-lasting approach to doing these things.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment on the floor? Okay, Councillor Scott
Yeah,
Morgan.
just the one question, because Councillor Rendell had asked that when the last raise was. If I don't recall correctly, please correct me, but I believe it was to the amount of $65 or something like that for the year.
I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly, and I
Yeah.
don't have that data in front of me. It wasn't very much at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just for the record. Yeah.
Councillor Cunningham.
I don't recall any raise that was so insignificant, and I'd only been here for around 6-7 months when that happened. But the interesting part is I don't think there'd been any raises before that for quite a while either. And so I think when you look at the overall picture, it's not a big deal. Like what I've heard from people in that is, and again, you put it out on Facebook and come to the meetings. If you don't come to the meeting, I assume we're doing everything the way you want it done. Well, we had 2 budget meetings, and this was included in the second one, and people seem to be happy with what we're doing, and that's so. I think that there might be small splinter groups here and there, but the general picture and general attitude I get is that most people are quite happy.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, motion doesn't carry. Now we're back into the main motion, which is the package on the table. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I still feel like whatever if we go on back to this motion, I still feel like we take any increase whatever we lost on 1/3, nor like these numbers, because still I think our community still not in a position to make even 0.5% next year if we don't get any extra money, 0.5% increase on property taxes just to cover our extra wages. So I think I won't be supporting this motion.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Any reports from members of council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, moved by Councillor Morrow, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor 80.
Will do. Thanks.